In December 2019, a 22-year-old content creator with a camera and a loyal following did something almost no one took seriously at the time. She launched a coffee company. No retail shelf space, no venture backing, no blueprint, just bags of coffee mailed directly to fans who trusted her taste. 5 years later, Chamberlain Coffee was generating $22 million in annual revenue, stocked in over 8,500 retail locations nationwide. This is the story of how Emma Chamberlain turned attention into an empire, and why the smartest money in consumer brands eventually came looking for her. December 2019, Beverly Hills, California. While millions of viewers were tuning into Emma Chamberlain's YouTube vlogs, watching her brew coffee in her apartment, talk about her obsessions, and navigate early adulthood on camera, she was quietly building something underneath all of it. Chamberlain Coffee launched that month as a direct-to-consumer business, shipping coffee bags straight to customers' doors. No middleman, no retail partner. Just a founder with an audience and a product she genuinely used on screen every single day. From the very beginning, Emma served as Chief Creative Officer, not a celebrity figurehead, but an architect of the brand's identity. The authenticity wasn't manufactured. It had been broadcasting live for years. By early 2026, Emma Chamberlain's YouTube channel had accumulated more than 12 million subscribers and crossed 1.7 billion lifetime views across 308 uploaded videos. Those numbers alone would make her one of the most watched individual creators in the platform's history. But the metrics only tell part of the story. Her exclusive multi-year podcast deal with Spotify, which brought Anything Goes with Emma Chamberlain behind the platform's paywall beginning in early 2023, reportedly contributed heavily to Forbes, estimating she earned approximately $20 million in a single year. Combined with her brand campaigns, her equity stake in Chamberlain Coffee, and her role as co-CEO since August 2024, Emma Chamberlain had become something the industry rarely sees: a creator who built a genuinely diversified business empire before the age of 25. She was not just an influencer anymore, she was an operator. By the summer of 2020, Chamberlain Coffee had been operating for less than 8 months. It had no shelf space in any major retailer, no traditional distribution network. What it did have was an audience, a deeply loyal, highly engaged community of young consumers who had watched Emma Chamberlain drink coffee on camera for years before the brand ever existed. That was enough for Blazar Capital. The investment firm wrote the first outside check in July 2020, closing what became the brand's inaugural funding round. It was a calculated bet, not on a product formula or a logistics advantage, but on the power of authentic parasocial trust at scale. Consumer brands had spent decades trying to manufacture that kind of relationship through advertising. Blazar Capital recognized that Emma Chamberlain hadn't manufactured it at all. She had simply lived it publicly for years. In 2020, that was worth backing. August 2022. Chamberlain Coffee closed a $7 million funding round, and the investor list read like a who's who of the creator economy's power structure. Blazar Capital returned, doubling down on their original conviction. But the new names were just as telling. Brandon Brown, founder of Grin, one of the most widely used influencer marketing platforms in the industry, wrote a check. So did Nick Sharma, one of the most respected direct-to-consumer marketing strategists in the country. Ken Sadowski, a seasoned beverage industry veteran, came on board. And UTA Ventures, the investment arm of United Talent Agency, participated as well. This was not a group of generalist venture capitalists taking a flyer on celebrity branding. These were specialists, people who understood exactly how influencer-driven consumer brands were built, scaled, and monetized. The fact that all of them wanted in on Chamberlain Coffee in 2022 sent a clear signal. This was not a vanity project. This was a real company. Less than a year after the August 2022 raise, the money came again. In June 2023, Chamberlain Coffee closed another $7 million in follow-on funding, and this time the investor roster read like a who's who of consumer brand acceleration. Volition Capital, a growth equity firm with a track record of backing breakout consumer companies, came in. So did Electric Field Ventures, the investment arm tied to one of music and entertainment's most aggressive venture operations. LA Libations, a beverage-focused accelerator and investor with deep retail relationships, also joined the round. PLT FRM founder Noah Bremen rounded out the group. Each of these names brought more than capital. They brought distribution intelligence, retail access, and strategic horsepower. For a brand still barely 4 years old, the signal was unmistakable. Serious institutional money had decided Chamberlain Coffee was not a celebrity novelty. It was a real business. February 1st, 2024. Chamberlain Coffee closed a $4.6 million Series A extension round. But the detail that stopped people in their tracks was not the dollar figure. It was who was writing checks. Among the 6 total investors in that round was Emma Chamberlain herself. Not as founder, not as chief creative officer, but as an angel investor. She put her own personal capital into the company she had built. That is a specific kind of conviction. When a founder writes a personal check into their own venture at this stage, it sends a message to every other investor at the table. I believe in this enough to risk my own money, not just my name. For a 22-year-old who had already earned significant income through Spotify and brand deals, that decision reflected a strategic maturity that most founders twice her age never demonstrate. Add it all up and the picture becomes striking. Chamberlain Coffee raised its first outside capital from Blazar Capital in July 2020. Then came the $7 million round in August 2022, backed by Blazar Capital again, Grin founder Brandon Brown, marketing operator Nick Sharma, beverage veteran Ken Sadowski, and UTA Ventures, the investment vehicle of one of Hollywood's most powerful talent agencies. The June 2023 follow-on brought in Volition Capital, Electric Field Ventures, LA Libations, and Noah Bremen. The February 2024 Series A extension added 6 more investors, including Emma herself. Total capital raised across all rounds crossed $18 million. That is not influencer money. That is not a vanity project kept alive by a famous face. That is a capitalization table populated by institutional investors, consumer goods specialists, and entertainment industry power brokers, all of whom underwrote the same thesis. This brand had real, durable, scalable value. It started as a direct-to-consumer mail-order operation out of Beverly Hills. You went to the website, you ordered your coffee, it arrived at your door. That was the entire model in December 2019. What happened next was a complete retail transformation. Chamberlain Coffee pushed into brick and mortar with the velocity that most emerging beverage brands spend a decade trying to achieve. The brand landed shelf space at Walmart, the largest retailer on earth. It got into Target. It got into Costco, where products live or die based on membership-driven bulk purchasing behavior. It secured placement at Whole Foods and Sprouts, 2 retailers whose buyers are notoriously selective about which brands earn premium shelf real estate. The result? more than 8,500 retail locations carrying Chamberlain coffee products across the country. That kind of distribution footprint is not built on social media followers. It is built on sell-through data, reorder rates, and margin performance that convinces retail buyers to keep the product on the shelf. Now look at the revenue line. Forbes estimated Chamberlain Coffee generated approximately $20 million in 2023. The following year, 2024, the brand reached $22 million in annual revenue, a 10% climb, but more importantly, a confirmation that the 2023 number was not a ceiling. Then came the projection for 2025, last year's target, $33 million. That would represent approximately 53% growth over 2024 in a single calendar year. 53%. In the coffee category, one of the most crowded, most competitive, most margin-compressed spaces in consumer packaged goods, that kind of growth trajectory is not normal. It reflects the compounding effect of retail expansion, a loyal direct-to-consumer base, a founder whose media presence continues to drive organic awareness, and an operational infrastructure funded by $18+ million of institutional capital. The curve is not flattening, it is accelerating. $22 million in 2024 revenue was already a headline. But the number that stopped rooms full of consumer brand analysts cold was what came next. Chamberlain Coffee projected $33 million for 2025, a 53% leap in a single calendar year. In the beverage industry, that kind of growth trajectory doesn't happen quietly. It happens because a brand cracked something structural: retail penetration, repeat purchase behavior, or a product line expansion that finally clicked with a broader consumer base. For investors who came in across 4 funding rounds totaling more than $18 million, that 53% figure was the first real proof of concept at scale. For skeptics, it was the number they were stress testing hardest, because projections aren't receipts, and the coffee category punishes optimism without margins to back it up. In August 2024, Chamberlain Coffee made an announcement that reframed everything observers thought they understood about Emma Chamberlain's role inside her own company. She was promoted from Chief Creative Officer to Co-CEO, sharing the title with Gustav Langberg-Hossi, the operational architect who had joined as Chief Operating Officer back in 2020 and quietly built the infrastructure that allowed the brand to scale. This was not a ceremonial upgrade. In the creator economy, founders often get handed vanity titles while professional executives run the actual business. This move inverted that assumption. Emma Chamberlain was now formally co-leading a company generating $22 million annually. Hossi brought the operational discipline. Chamberlain brought brand authority that no outside hire could replicate. Together, that structure told investors something important. This wasn't a licensing deal dressed up as a startup. It was a real company with a real leadership table. Every direct-to-consumer brand eventually faces the same existential question: can it survive contact with the physical world? In January 2025, Chamberlain Coffee answered that question by opening its first brick-and-mortar cafe inside Westfield Century City Mall in Los Angeles, one of the highest traffic, highest expectation retail environments in the country. This was not a pop-up. This was not a brand activation tent at a music festival. This was a permanent cafe embedded inside a mall that draws millions of visitors annually, situated in a city where the coffee culture is both deeply serious and deeply trend sensitive. The location was a statement. It told the 8,500 retail partners already carrying Chamberlain coffee products on their shelves that this brand was building something with physical permanence. It told consumers that the aesthetic they followed on a screen could now be walked into, ordered from, and experienced in 3 dimensions. Here is what the narrative of growth does not automatically answer. Chamberlain Coffee raised more than $18 million across multiple rounds: seed funding, a $7 million raise in 2022, a further $7 million in 2023, and a $4.6 million Series A extension in early 2024. But no confirmed profitability data has entered the public record. Revenue and profit are not the same sentence. In a category as brutally competitive as premium consumer coffee, where margins are squeezed by sourcing costs, packaging, and retail slotting fees, generating $33 million in projected revenue means very little if the unit economics don't hold. Add to that the unresolved question of brand durability. What happens to Chamberlain Coffee's retail velocity if Emma Chamberlain's cultural relevance shifts? These are not unfair questions. They are the exact questions that separate brands built to last from brands built to exit. What Chamberlain Coffee ultimately represents is something the business world spent years debating in theory and is now being forced to evaluate in practice. The creator to founder pipeline, the idea that audience trust can be converted into brand equity and brand equity into durable revenue, has no cleaner case study than this one. Emma Chamberlain started mailing coffee bags from Beverly Hills in December 2019. By 2024, that operation generated $22 million in annual revenue, sat in over 8,500 retail locations, held a co-CEO at its helm, and planted a physical cafe in one of Los Angeles' most competitive addresses. That is a real company. But the coffee industry's final exam is not revenue, it is margins. It is repeat purchase rates measured over years, not quarters. The template is proven. The grade isn't posted yet. When Gustav Langberg-Hossi stepped into the COO role at Chamberlain Coffee in 2020, the company was barely a year old. A mail-order coffee bag operation running out of Beverly Hills on the strength of Emma Chamberlain's audience. What happened over the next 4 years told a very different story. Hossi built the operational backbone that a creator-founded brand almost never has. Supply chains, retail relationships, investor communications. The kind of institutional scaffolding that turns a personality into a platform. By August 2024, that scaffolding was strong enough that Hossi was elevated to co-CEO, sharing the title with Emma Chamberlain herself. That is not a symbolic gesture. That is a company acknowledging that two distinct skill sets now sit at the top of the organization. Creative vision on one side, operational execution on the other. That combination is exactly what serious consumer brands require to scale. In venture capital, a follow-on investment is one of the loudest signals available. It means an investor has seen the internal numbers, watched the team operate under pressure, and decided to write another check anyway. At Chamberlain Coffee, that signal appeared repeatedly. Blazar Capital came in first, July 2020, when the brand was barely off the ground. They returned in the August 2022 round. Electric Field Ventures and Volition Capital joined in June 2023, then showed up again in the February 2024 Series A extension. These are not passive bets. These are institutional investors doubling down after seeing real revenue traction. Approximately $20 million in 2023 by Forbes estimates, climbing to $22 million in 2024. When the same names keep reappearing across multiple rounds, the message to the market is unambiguous. The conviction here is not fading, it is compounding. Emma Chamberlain's personal net worth sat at an estimated $30 million as of last year. A portion of that came from her Spotify podcast deal. Forbes reported she earned approximately $20 million in a single year, largely driven by that exclusive multi-year arrangement for Anything Goes with Emma Chamberlain. But the more consequential number may not be her net worth at all. It may be her equity position inside Chamberlain Coffee. When the Series A extension closed on February 1st, 2024, Emma Chamberlain participated as an angel investor, meaning she put her own capital into the company she co-founded and co-leads. That is a founder betting on herself with personal money. Every dollar of revenue growth at Chamberlain Coffee from $22 million in 2024 toward a projected $33 million in 2025 directly expands the value of that equity stake. Her financial upside is no longer just about sponsorship rates and subscriber counts. It is tied to whether this brand executes. Most creator brands follow a predictable arc. Merchandise drops, limited runs, a product line that lasts as long as the audience's attention. Chamberlain Coffee was built differently from the beginning. The Beverly Hills incorporation was not aesthetic, it was structural. The retail expansion into 8,500 locations across Walmart, Target, Costco, Whole Foods, and Sprouts was not a licensing shortcut, it was a distribution strategy. And the physical cafe that opened at Westfield Century City in January 2025 was the clearest signal yet. Brick and mortar is expensive, operationally complex, and brand defining in ways that a Shopify store never can be. You do not open a cafe if you're running a merch play. You open a cafe if you're building a brand that is meant to outlast the algorithm. Every structural decision Chamberlain Coffee made pointed toward permanence, and that distinction separates it from almost every creator-led consumer venture that came before it. Emma Chamberlain turned a camera, a voice, and a genuine obsession with coffee into a company that generated $22 million in revenue last year and is projecting $33 million this year. That story did not happen by accident. It happened because of operational leadership, institutional capital with sustained conviction, and a brand strategy built for the long game. If this investigation gave you something to think about, hit the like button right now. It helps more people find this work. Share this video with someone who follows creators because this is the conversation they should be having. Subscribe to Creator Nexus for weekly investigations just like this one. And check the description below. There are related videos linked there that go even deeper. We will see you in the next one. If you enjoyed this video, like it, share with your friends, and subscribe to Creator Nexus for weekly creator investigations. If you learn something new, share it with a friend. Drop a comment telling us which creator you want investigated next.